Hi, and welcome back to another edition of Connected Faith. This is an opportunity where we can grow together. There is an immense digital world out there, and how does the church navigate that so that we are in the marketplace, we are not a silent people, and yet we are encouraging and blessing the congregation and growing it through the digital space? So I'm Bill Snyder, founder of Asia Pacific Media Ministries, a ministry that's now in its third year of ministry in Manila, Philippines, and throughout Southeast Asia. And also Dr. Lane McDonald. Lane, welcome. Connection
Hey,
Pastor, First Assembly Memphis.
glad to be back.
How are you?
I'm good. I'm blessed. Have a whole new year and a whole lot more topics to cover, right?
We do. We do. And thank you for letting other people know about this podcast. If you're learning something, share it with somebody else. And if you've got questions that you'd like us to talk about, we would be happy to do that. We're going in a little different direction today because the digital world both has a very amazing opportunity which we can engage in as a church, but there's also the difficult side of digital and its addictive nature, especially as it relates to kids. So we're going to talk about ways that you can build a strong family and you can help your congregation to navigate the challenges of the digital world, especially related to your kids. So, Blaine, I count on you. You've done a lot of research on this, and you've got two small children. What are their ages again?
Oldest one's 11, and the youngest, the girl, just turned 7. So she's been 6, 7 all year. So I've heard that all year. It's been something.
And I've got some grandkids who are, well, one is 15 and the other is 12. And then I've got some that are a little bit older than that. So smartphones are a part of their life or their wannabe life. So I suppose we begin with, I think some parents use a smartphone as almost like a babysitter. And the unfiltered nature of smartphones can really affect kids in ways that I don't think we've ever really comprehended. Can you unpack that a little bit? Because we've all got the challenge of children and the smartphone.
Yeah, and I want to just preference this. What we're going to cover, there's some really shock elements to the statistics, right? And some of the situations out there might not be appropriate for kids to hear. So put some earbuds in or just listen to it when your kids aren't present. But yeah, and that's really the issue, right? Like this topic is not appropriate for kids to hear because there's issues with it. And yet we just hand them an unfiltered phone and say, that's age appropriate. That's okay. I don't know about you. I grew up in the 80s and 90s. And I was told, don't talk to strangers. Don't go into strangers' cars. Stranger danger. That's what we were taught.
Yeah.
And these days, kids are taught order an Uber from a stranger, chat and text with weird, anybody that you want on video games. It's completely fine. It's marketed as safe. They navigate kids to things that are not appropriate. And if parents are not in the know, and I personally don't know how you can't be in the know if you're a younger parent in this day and age. So that's really what this podcast is about. And we're starting really with the unfiltered smart device in a child's hands. And this isn't safe technology. This isn't like handing a unplugged off the Wi-Fi, off the internet Game Boy. Back in the day, I had like Tetris, Mario.
Yeah.
I went over to Sonic. It's video games. And as long as there wasn't any cursing or, language, they usually put that on the back of the box, you were okay. But that's not it's not apples to apples. This is not what we're talking about. What we're talking about is if you've got a smart device, it is connected to the internet. If you don't have basic parental controls on it, it's wide open. And if someone knows the phone number or an email or a way to text them, the whole world has access to your child. And when we say stranger danger, well, you're just handing the keys to your house to anybody that wants to come in and do anything to your family. And I'm talking about you, your spouse, your kids. It is not safe. And I think when I started doing this research years back in another life, and we can talk about this at another time.
Okay, good.
Yeah. So the main problem is that we're going to start talking about this. It's not even safe for kids to be in the room talking about this. and we're using clean language. We're just simply saying the issues, and that's not even safe for kids to hear. So when you simply give, so just be warned, put some headphones in. Don't let your kids listen to this podcast, because we don't want to give ideas, and you might not even know some of these even exist. And it's good for an adult to know, because what you put into your heart is what comes out, right? And so that's really what we're talking about. And I struggle with, am I going to have to go to the judgment seat of God and say, I'm the reason why my child stumbled? Because that whole Bible verse of tying a rope around your neck with a millstone, get thrown in if you let one of these kids stumble, right? And that's really what we're talking about. That's how serious this is. Giving an unfiltered device to a kid, an unfiltered phone, and there's so many ways to even filter it. So this is not just harmless technology. It is attached to the internet. It is, just by virtue of that, any weirdo out there has access to your child. And how is that even possibly remotely logically safe for a parent to say, hey, here's a device that just lets anybody in? They can watch anything they want. They can listen to anything they want. It is just totally not appropriate. And it's an unsupervised door into adult rooms, adult conversations, and adult predators. This is very, very serious stuff that we're talking about. And I thank you for agreeing.
And Lane, I don't think most parents really grasp the intrusion that can come into a child's while he's flipping through a YouTube or a TikTok or something like that. And there's some channels that are probably more challenging than others that can lead people in a bad way. It can become, these are broad generalizations, but to certain children, it can become very addictive. Where do you,
and I'll preference that with,
how do you
it's
step
designed
in?
to be addictive. It's designed to be addictive from the start.
Right. Yeah. So where do you start? Because I'm going to assume that the majority of people listening were probably with somewhat of an unfiltered device, because we've never really, it happens. Life happens. I'm busy and I trust my kids and whatever. I trust the church family. How do I bring this about? Where do I start to try to bring some order to this chaos?
There are many tricks of the trade when it comes to marketing. One of them that has always stuck in my head, that can be insidiously used to the darkest portions of the soul, is if it's accessible, it becomes acceptable. Not giving access to people to things until they're 18 or 21, there's a reason for that. And so accessibility becomes acceptability. One of the off-putting things, there's a bookstore I absolutely love, and I used to go in there for the magazines, because I was like, film magazines, Hollywood magazines, because my background's film and TV, right? They started putting adult magazines right there, right beside it. So I was like, I didn't even want to go into that aisle, because I didn't want to be associated with that. And back then it was like, that's all you could get, right? Because back then there was the internet, and it was very little to do on the internet. So you had to go elsewhere to go to the darkest corners of, sin and debauchery. And now it's just a click away. And that's really the issue. It's not about giving your kids freedom. It's giving or trusting your child. It's about how these things are accessible. And when 70 to 80% of kids are going to stumble on something accidentally, we're talking about curiosity into exposure. That the accidental exposure starts a curiosity. We talk about gateway drugs or gateway this or that. A simple exposure to a scantily clothed girl to a boy is going to put images in his head. Simply that. And so exposure becomes normal. And then the parent can even keep up with it. You're giving your kid a device that fast tracks them into things that they should not even be around. It's like throwing a kid into a strip club and saying, don't look up. It really is that equivalent. And for an adult, when over 50% of pastors and some statistics say they are struggling with this is a real thing. These are the boots on the ground. This is the front lines of a war that we're dealing with that you don't throw children into, right? That's not where they belong. They belong behind you with locked doors and a sword in your hand, ready to fight for your child's safety. And safety is not only about content, it's about contact. When we go out, we don't go to dangerous areas with our children, right? We don't go to restaurants that are in like really shady areas that we don't know if we're safe or not. Might be a great restaurant. We're not going there with our kids. So why would you do that on the internet? Why would you give your kid that? Throw them into the gunfight of sin, where that's not where they belong. A simple direct message is where the grooming and the trafficking begins. And I've heard stories, horror stories, of girls getting abducted, and it started with a simple text, a simple game chat. And it could be a person they trust and they went down a wrong aisle and they need someone else to come down the road with them. It's that simple. So parental monitoring is not about control. It's about discipleship with a seatbelt. And I would even go a longer way. I would say parental control these days is the armor of God that you got to have on, and nothing gets through that. What I do with my kids, just real quick, is we have the simple parental control set up on all of our Apple devices. We have nothing but Apple devices because I know how to use them. I know how to get into the nuts and bolts of it. So the parental controls safeguard the rating options, which are not perfect by any stretch of the imagination, but they don't hear music that's above G. They don't see movies above PG or G. They don't see books above kid grade level, which is like G, and that's all locked down. But then we also have other apps that we'll probably get into. But I lock it down, and my kids are so mad at me sometimes because they can't play a certain game, and it's just because to play the game they don't give you parental controls, and there's a reason for that.
Okay.
And the biggest stretch for me is one of the things I had to, and I'll market this one because I want parents to know not to buy it for the kids. Halo. I love Halo. Halo's a gunfighting game, been out there for 20 years. Alien to come to Earth and you're fighting them. It's just a fun multiplayer game. Reach is mature for the language on it, and you can't turn off the language. It gives you parental controls to turn off the language. But within a minute or two, once the parents have left the room, the audio comes back on. So there's a time limit to the language. So you have to know all the tricks of the trade. Just to say, this is what we're talking about. It all starts with you as the parent.
Okay. And you don't want to take on the role of the prison warden, but yet you want to provide some practical ways of locking down. Give us some ideas, things that you have done with your family or that you might recommend. And, you've got a track record of working with an 11-year-old who I'm sure is very curious about going a lot of directions with that smartphone. And some people would say, don't even let somebody have a smartphone until they're age 12 or 13 or 14. I don't know how you feel about that, and every parent has to do it differently, but these phones can't become babysitters. So let me go back to first steps that can help to provide the filtering that you want parents to be able to have for their kids. What are your thoughts?
Well, number one, if you're a brand new parent, and this was hard for me coming from film and television. My kids didn't know there was a TV until they were 3. They played in their rooms. We read books to them. We read over 500 children's books. I'm talking about like the big cardboard ones, right? They're easy to get through, but 500 a day. Like we just sit there and go through these things, make voices, have fun, get the stuffed animals out, party like it's 1999. If they do see something, maybe it's like maybe it was like Coco Melon or something at church, or maybe a video at church. They just thought it was the magic box, right? So when we started doing movies, we already had a base of, we're going to start small. We're going to start with Little Mermaid and Aladdin. And, we're not shoving Stranger Things at an 8-year-old, right? Just like the best idea to do. I'll tell you what I do with my kids, and I want to do some stats real quick just to show what we're talking about. One of the most powerful stats is the online enticement of basically talking about trafficking, grooming, weirdo, incidences of kids going missing, extortion, sextortion. I mean, we're talking about crazy stuff, right? So these numbers were like 187,000 in 2023, which is a lot. 187,000 kids either went missing or had a grooming incident, had some creep trying to do something online. 1 year later, from 187,000 is 546,000 situations.
And what year was that? 546, what year?
2024.
Okay. Wow.
So in 1 year, it jumped that much. So we're talking about a growing activity, and they know where your kids are. And that just shows that they're targeting. Most of that is coming from Xbox, PlayStation, the innocent Nintendo, because they can chat with your kids and they can start a conversation and a relationship with your kids. And then they say, hey, we're having a video game party at this house, And if they're driving age or they got friends that can drive, off they go, and you never see them again. This is how serious it is, and we're not making up the dangerousness here. So one of the authorities wrote a stat that said they helped over 29,000 missing children's cases in 2024, and 91% of them came home. That's a great stat, but that means 9% of them did not come home.
Yeah, that's
right?
thousands.
So I proactively, as a parent, do not have smartphones for my kids. They do not have a smartphone. We homeschool, so they have an iPad for school. And if they're good, we'll put a game on there. Like there's apps that we have that have like triggers, like vacuum, clean your room, clean the bathroom. You got a few chores. In 30 minutes for a video game comes up. And it's probably Minecraft. And they don't have the online access to Minecraft. They just build stuff. We don't do the realms. We don't do online chat. We don't do any of that.
Is there any research that you've picked up that would say, what is an appropriate age that a child could have their own phone?
From what I gather, if they need a phone to call you for safety, right? If they're old enough, probably 6th grade, 7th grade, 8th grade would be good enough for a multi-button phone that they could just click and call somebody for safety. That's really all they need. Until they're a teenager and have their own job, right? Probably a texting call phone. They don't need access to the internet, probably like Google Maps to get places. You don't need social media. You don't. It's called call your friend, text your friend that you already have contact for. But don't give the world access to your children. Now, remember, I'm not saying don't give the world to your children. That could be the same way, but don't give your children access. I'm saying don't give the world access to your children. And any way you can lock that down is perfect. I have friends. I have people that have been in church for years. I have people that sit at high places in Christian organizations who let their kids run amok on devices. They'll let their kids watch Chucky. They'll watch them watch all the horror films they want, unfiltered everything. And I'm like, what are you thinking? And they're like, well, as long as they do it in the house. I'm like, you're screwing your kid up in your house. No. What goes into their soul, right? It's like eating. If you eat nothing but lard, that's not going to be healthy. If that's all you're ingesting into your soul, it's not going to be healthy. And the same thing goes with parents. You can't watch inappropriate content as a Christian. You can't.
You're modeling something.
You're modeling, but you're also corrupting your own mind and heart.
Yep.
And your marriage is going to suffer for it. Your relationships will suffer for it. And it will come out at some point. And that's why the Bible is very firm on your body being your temple, being the temple of God. You've got to protect it with all your heart because they feed on it. They're getting money from it. And I think we've talked about neuroscience and all that and how they entice you with drama on social media. We just had about 3 or 4 suicides in the last 2 years in local schools because of bullying, because parents gave their kids internet and a phone, unfiltered, unguarded, and a bunch of people got access to them and just destroy their minds. It's serious.
Let's set a scenario up. We're talking to people and their young teen already has a phone.
Mm-hmm.
You're very likely not going to take it away from them.
Mm-hmm.
So what are the types of things that can build some filters and control that you're more aware of what is getting through and what isn't? What would you recommend in that area? Because some, they're 14-year-old, they've got an old iPhone that gives them access to, or they've got some Android, and it's the cat is out of the bag to a degree, but now we're trying to build the fence.
Yeah, you said it interestingly, build a fence, right? You lock the doors at night for your house. Why?
Mm-hmm.
Lock the doors to your car. Why? Right? You should be locking your kid behind stuff. You should lock their phone down. It's a full unfiltered access to your child in their bedroom. And I have rules like our kids do not have their iPads in other rooms other than the living room. And they have to turn them to where we can see them from every door as they do their schoolwork. And we found them sneaking video games, right? And that's the most innocent way. Kids are going to, we will always try to ride the fence, right? When we're learning. So the goal isn't about perfection. It's about filters. It's about accountability. It's about a pathway that protects the innocence while teaching wisdom. Like my kids always ask me, whoa, why can't we go there? Right? So now they're getting old enough to realize there was an ad that came on. We hadn't searched for it, but we talked about it. And I think it was like Band-Aids or something. My son is obsessed with Band-Aids. He wants to be an ER doctor or something. So anytime anybody gets a scratch, he's ridding our house of all of its Band-Aids. And he's like, did anybody search for Band-Aids? I'm like, no, why? He's like, there's an ad on TV for Band-Aids. He's like, our devices are listening. So he's already thinking, right? He's already knows that if you search for something, they're going to try to sell it to you. So I'm going to go through a list of things, and we'll put the list on the screen for everybody because I really want you to be able to pause and go through this. All right. And I'll do it in a way that you can probably do a checklist or download these apps and all that kind of stuff. Okay. So turn on the parental controls. Most likely it's a Google, Android, maybe it's an Android or an Apple device. There is a little button in there in the settings called parental controls. Turn it on. Just go through the slew of things on there. I know for Apple, it's called content privacy restrictions. And it will go through on, can they get on the App Store? Can they get in the Apple Music Store? Can they get on the internet? It will totally take Safari off. They cannot get on. It'll take video playing off stuff. I got into a trouble because I turned video off on our privacy thing, and then they couldn't watch videos on their homeschool app. So I was like, oh man. But the great thing is if you leave it on, it'll tell you what things can they have access to. Like I can leave the music on and they only have access to kid music, right? It's kind of like YouTube Kids. You can choose what age group they're in and then choose what they have access to. So even though my son's 11, he only has access to everything up to 8 because I don't trust their grading scales. So we're dealing with people that aren't Christian, right? They might be morally minded, and that's why they built this app, but they don't have really a cornerstone foundation for this. So you have to be versed. You have to teach yourself how to be technically savvy for the safety of your children and for yourself. Google Family Link is a phenomenal application. It's completely free. I try to put it on my Apple devices. It does not work well. It only works with Android devices. So you have to have an ecosystem. So I'm all Apple. And the reason why I don't sway into Microsoft or Google Android is because my kids are on my profile. I can turn on all the parental controls, but I can also see they don't have search history because they don't have Safari on their iPads. But I can see the photos they're taking, the pictures they're putting on their teachers' faces while they're doing their school, because they'll do still camera stuff. And I'm like, you got to be listening to the teacher, guys. But I can see what they're listening to on music. I can see what they're watching on YouTube Kids. And I can track all that through that. Google Link is amazing. Google Family Link is pretty cool because it gives you those chore options. I use a third-party app that does that. It's called Kid Locks with an X. Kid Locks with an X. It's for Apple. You can turn that on and it'll actually scan devices for inappropriate photos, texts.
Wow.
These apps will actually search for what, if you do have kids that you want to give them some sort of access to the internet for school, maybe they're doing homework at home, it'll actually search what they're searching for. It will search.
Is that an app? Is KidLocks an app?
KidLocks is an app.
Okay.
Google Family Link is free. That's for Google. If you have a bunch of video platforms, I'm one of them, right? I have Netflix, Apple TV, I have Android, I have Disney Plus. I wish we were back in the old days that it was just like turn on a TV and there's your channels for free, but that's just not the case anymore. Netflix allows maturity rating restrictions. And all these have parental controls of 4 to 6 number PIN that you can put in for your parent areas. Maybe you're watching Beast Games, which is a fun reality show from Mr. Beast. It's hilarious. But there might be a word in there or two that's not appropriate for kids. And maybe you just don't want kids to watch people doing stupid antics like Fear Factor or something like that. Parental controls on the kids stuff. Plus, you can see what they're watching. That goes with Netflix, Prime, Apple TV, Disney Plus. Google Play parental controls is just like Apple parental controls. Those are what you need to do now. And then set up your Netflix, Amazon. No one gets into the adult content. You filter everything. Even your stuff goes down to PG or lower. As a parent, don't even have the thumbnails out there staring at you in the face. I walked in to our TV and it's like Vizio, and it had a screen. It has screen savers. I didn't even think about this on the TV, smart TVs. We had to put a filter on the smart TV because which one was staring at the predator, going, "Wow, look at that! He's got blood on his knife." I don't want my kid to know that. I'm probably more hard-nosed than most, but I don't want to even have my kid even having questions about R-rated horror films, right? So we put the filter on there, and it's not going to be perfection. This is not about perfection. This is about learning what works for your family, and you're going to. It's kind of like the refining fire. You're always going to find something slipping through the cracks. Because those companies are after you and your children because you are the money bags. Right? A bark. We're talking about phones. I love Aora. I think I'm saying that right. Robert Downey Jr. bought part of the company and he has young kids. I think he's 60? He's got the Hollywood age parent thing going on. But he's got like really young kids. And he did a video that from his phone, it was an ad. I know. And it touched me because I knew he was being sincere about it when he said, do you constantly feel like the internet is becoming more and more dangerous to your children? He's like, I feel that way about my kids. And that's why I bought it to Aurora. Aurora is a great app. It's a little bit more.
How do you spell that word?
Say what?
How do you spell that word?
Aura.
Okay. Aura.
It's probably the best software out there for family digital safety. It actually teamed up with LifeLocks, I think. So not only can you protect your kids from internet safety, you can actually protect your whole family from identity theft. There's also something else that's going on where people will actually steal your house, your property, your titles to your cars, and they do that by finding your information online.
Wow. Yeah.
People sell your stuff and they hack stuff all the time, right? You hear these bank hacks that happen. They just stole a couple million people's information. So
one of the most popular apps that is out there, especially among youth, is TikTok.
Mm-hmm.
Does TikTok have parental controls?
I wish. There are ways to set up TikTok for your kids, but you have to do it for them. But social media is one of those iffy areas where parental controls from the device itself. That's really where KidLocks, Aora, Bark is a great platform. These are in, what's the other one? The free ones are Google Family Link.
So these superimpose controls on.
It filters what's going in, so they'll just get a blank screen if something's inappropriate.
Okay.
But it pre-screens everything before they see it. It slows down the internet because it's screening everything. Google Parent Link, free, awesome. Bark's awesome. Aora's great. Those are the ones in KidLocks because I use it. I know it works. Aora, I've used it for a little bit too expensive for me. And Bark actually has a phone as well, and I would recommend that phone be the first phone any kid gets because you can fully control what they have access to on it. You can set it up to be just a 3-number phone, and then you can add apps as they get older and they learn. But yeah, it fully locks down everything. I would never give my first phone my kids are going to get is probably a Bark. I'm not going to give them an iPhone. It's just not going to happen. A quick note. Did you know Steve Jobs never had a smart device? He never owned an iPhone?
I think I read that somewhere.
He never gave it to his kids. And you've got to ask the question, why? And I can answer that for you. You can pretty much know the answer. He knew the power of it. It has from the beginning been designed for addiction. And you have to understand that going into anything. My wife did we're finishing this fast at our church, and she fasted from Facebook. Her life opened up. Like the drama ceased, right? It's like a cease and desist. It's amazing if you just fast from that stuff, you quickly realize what's going into your mind. Instead of watching Netflix and binge watching Netflix, why don't we binge read the Bible? Or binge read a good Christian-based book that's going to elevate you, not deplete you. But that's really what we're talking about.
This is really, and I mean, you could dig down into the statistics of it all, but even the little bit that you've mentioned, this is really a battleground. And it can become a battleground between parent and teen or preteen as to all of my friends have this. Why can't I have this? Because you're dealing with parents who have a variety of views about it. Some are just, well, whatever. And others, their eyes are opening up to the potential of this problem.
It is the battleground, I would have to say. I mean, we already ran through those stats of 7 to 12 hours a day online. I mean, really? That's the average for kids? The average. So we're not talking about a battleground. This is the battleground. This is where they are. Kids are being bullied. Suicide is happening. Kids are being abducted, and it's happening from a device in their pocket, right? We talk about divorce rates going up, pornography addiction. It used to be harder and embarrassing to go into those places, right? You want to steer away. They look shady. They look dark. Weird people roam the streets. You don't want to go into those places, but now you can just sit in your room and go down deep rabbit holes by yourself. And that's not what humanity was meant to do, right? You're not meant to go to sleep, turned away from your spouse, looking at your phone. Your kids aren't meant to spend hours in their room unparented, unsupervised, making relationships with digital devices. That's not what we're made for. We're made for human interaction, and we only live abundantly when we find that in each other, right? And in Christ. So that's really what the trade-off is humanity.
Some people are listening, and the train has left the station. And they want to jump on the train because they've heard about a book that talks about this, and now they've got a podcast, and it's like there's a little bit of conviction going on. And it's like, I have preteens, or my church is loaded with young families. Where do I start? Okay, I'm a church leader. Where would you recommend I start with this? And are there, it's not 3 simple steps, but are there a few things that can help us at least engage and try to slow down what's happening?
There's a few tiers, right? I think the preemptive strike is probably the most important, which is Apple and Google parental tools that are already on the devices. I think as a church leader, I would make a one-pager, and I'll try to do this for our podcast so people can download these and just give them to their parents. I'm actually talking to a few people here about doing this for them already. And it's just how to set up the parental controls on your device.
Okay.
The second step would be do the double-layered castle wall, right? That's the preemptive moat, right? There's a bridge that gets over that moat. You need a big, strong wall, and that's going to be Aora, that's going to be Bark, that's going to be Kids Lock. Maybe the church can sponsor it if it's a small church. Maybe they can just give a one-pager about these apps. Some parents might not be able to afford the protection, and then that's a whole nother issue, right? Like, what's the cost of your kid's future? Can they go to the storehouse? Can they go to the church for assistance on these things? For instance, we have something called Right Now Media. Amazing. And it's growing by leaps and bounds, and they have pretty good quality kids shows. You got Pure Flix, you've got Angel Studios, you've got a lot of alternatives out there to Netflix. That could be a one-pager, right? So you can make a lot of little one-pagers. I'll try to do this for the churches so they can just download these and print them out and hand them off to their people.
That would be excellent.
It has to be, you have to be in a place where you say enough is enough, and my kids' lives are worth it. Right. And it's just these simple steps. I'll give you a tool that we use for Netflix, Amazon, because I want my kids to watch Back to the Future. I want my kids to watch the horribly made 1990 Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, right? I want to be able to give them these things and watch them see Goonies for the first time. And I was able to show my kids Goonies on VidAngel. So here's 2 more things. VidAngel and Enjoy Movies Your Way. You might remember the company of VidAngel because in the 1990s, they got sued for editing DVDs, right? They were a Christian movie group. They got sued for re-editing movies and selling them. So out of that debacle, God shines, right? So out of God's plans, VidAngel came on. And what you do is, you go to vidangel.com, you sign up, you link your Netflix, your Amazon, your Disney Plus, your Apple, whatever. And then you've put all the filters on. So we jack those filters up to where Goonies is like 10 minutes long, but they can actually watch it, right? It takes all the cursing out. It takes out the gore. It takes out the sexualization. I mean, everything from that to a short skirt, right? Or the best thing of Back to the Future was the prom night in the car, or like the weird moments with his mom, right? They totally cut it out. They have no clue. And it really didn't take anything away from the story. And actually it started conversations with us like, why did they cut that out? Or what did they say there? Oh, that person's horrible. They had to be censored.
They used to have this, and they still do to some degree, on airplanes. And my history was I've flown millions of miles on airplanes, and I've watched movies on airplanes, and they have been edited for content. So one time I was watching this particular movie on an airplane. I can't remember the name of the movie. And I came back and I recommended it to a friend, and they watched the movie. And it was like they came back to me and said, do you know some of the things that were in that movie? I said, no, what? I watched it on an airplane. And if I would have known some of the scenes that were cut, I never would have recommended it. But the story never lacked any direction or content. They just removed the stuff that was objectionable. And so I think that's a good suggestion to use VidAngel or another one of those apps to cut through this stuff. Occasionally, you and I both have watched a movie and it was like they put this scene in and it was like that scene is totally unnecessary to the story, but I think they just wanted to get the rating a little higher to attract more attention. And there's a lot of that goes on. So,
well, I mean, there's the insidious stuff too. You talk about the kids' movies.
Yeah.
They put a little bit of an adult theme in there just to get again, access becomes accessibility becomes acceptability, right? Gets their minds thinking. There was a little kids show and we loved it. It's like a Disney kids cat cartoon. And the cat goes home to two women that are married to each other. But you don't know that as a kid, but you know that as an adult. And there's just little slide remarks like you'll hear God or Jesus taken in vain, but no other curse words. It's just really strange. And obviously, I mean, they have years to prep these scripts, years to produce. It's all done on purpose. And as an adult, you have to understand this is a battleground, as you say. And you have to be armed with the tools and the knowledge to know that people are after us and they're after our kids. And, maybe they know not what they do, but a lot of them do. And you have to be proactive on this every single second of the day.
This is a conversation that we could go for a long time, but I think what Dr. Lane is going to offer you through this podcast is a checklist and resources so that you are able to download those and just go to Connected Faith and you'll have that information available to you. But what you do with that information, we'll layer it. So start here. Step 2, this. I think it will make a significant difference. And I think when we realize how insidious and how dangerous this can be, as church leaders, we need to step into the gap and recommend, but not just recommend, but also model ourselves. This is Connected Faith. We're concerned about the digital world, not only as the great opportunity we have to speak into people's lives about hope in Christ, but also ways to guard our hearts and our minds from a world that is just full of filth and it's there 24/7. And it's amazing how easily accessible it is. I think we all know that deep inside. So, Lane, any closing thoughts? We're out of time for this podcast. I do want to hear from you. If you have questions that we can consider in future broadcasts, we will certainly do that and share this with a friend. This is a space where you can learn. We're all learning, and you can grow in the digital outreach of your church and also in ways that you can serve your church family. Any closing thoughts?
Our email is connectedfaithpodcast@gmail.com. And I'd say just take this in stride. Start at step 1. We layered it in this podcast, but I think if you go through this podcast step by step with the handouts I'm going to make, you'll quickly see the difference in safety with your family. Have family time. Get away from digital devices. Don't make that part of your life. Make it just a tool that you use like an old phone on the wall. I have greatly repaired. I worked a lot in Hollywood. I inherited my dad's workaholism, right? It's a constant thought in my mind to take a step back, do some board games with my kids almost every night, and just have family talk around the dinner table. We have no digital device zones, so that if I'm in their rooms, I'm in their rooms. I'm playing games with them. I'm not hearing a buzz on my phone. That is designed on purpose to take you away from life because they get money for those clicks. So don't let that control you. You control it and spend time with your family in the Bible because that's really where it is. Don't let the non-eternal things control your eternal future.
Very good thoughts. Thank you very much. Thanks for all the research on this and the practical steps that you've given. You're a dad who's working with young children who are entering the teenage years. So it's not theory, folks. It's practice, and we're all trying to walk it out. Thanks for watching us on Connected Faith. Share the information with a friend, and we will see you again next time. God bless.